Hi everyone, I'm here with Professor Mischa Dohler, and we'll be talking about his upcoming book, Blockchains in 6G, Standardized Approach to Permission Distributed Ledgers. Hello, Dr. Dohler.
Hey, Anna, how are you?
So I guess the first question, what inspired you to explore the intersection of blockchains and 6G technology?
I mean, look, Anna, the telco ecosystem has evolved now in a rather accelerated way. So we're seeing a huge disaggregation happening at the moment. You will have heard of principles like Open RAN, which essentially introduces new interfaces, and that is a trend we will see continue evolving in 6G. Now, with that in mind, and also with an increasingly complex supply chain into the telco ecosystem, an obvious thing to do is to say, hey, how would a blockchain technology, distributed ledgers, really help with a disaggregated telco ecosystem? And blockchains are very good to handle, untrusted environment where there's a large amount of untrusted players there. And if you look at the disaggregation in telecom and the growing supply chain and a large supply chain, complicated supply chain in telecoms, you understand there's really a match there, and that is the reason why the ecosystem has started to focus on this intersection of telecoms and blockchain technologies.
Mm-hmm. And could you provide some examples of R&D projects that are pushing the boundaries of blockchain technology?
Oh, there's a lot going on. Maybe the most exciting one is the one we did in Etsy. So I work now for Ericsson at the time of recording, and before when I actually wrote this book and contributed, let's say, to the standard, I was at King's College in London, and I was one of the co-founders, along with my co-authors. With Diego and Chonggang, we were really driving the Etsy standardization efforts, and that's a really exciting project, to be honest. A fairly large R&D projects where we have a lot of companies, startups, university, academic contributions, really trying to figure out how an overall architecture could look like, which would really encompass blockchain technology and telecom.
Mm-hmm. So, as we're speaking about Etsy, what is the significance of Etsy's involvement in shaping a feature of blockchain and 6G integration?
So Etsy is a European standards defining organization, SDO, as we call them. And Etsy played an instrumental role, for instance, in the standardization of 2G, which really became what we know of telecoms today. And Etsy has been developing a set of very important standards over the past years in areas which are not necessarily 100% in telecoms. So there are a lot of different application areas. And often, once these standards really get momentum and grow, they will end up then in possibly other standards. In telecom, it would be 3GPP, where really we work on the technical implementations. So Etsy's role is kind of opening the door and also, defining the first architecture drafts, doing the first security drafts, really understanding, kind of preparing the land for the development of the upcoming technology. And last but not least, once the technology comes back, Etsy is actually the one who ratifies that. So that's the role of Etsy.
Okay. So, speaking about standards, apart from these, what are some other key standards and reference architectures that readers should be aware of when exploring blockchain's role in 6G?
Yeah, quite a few. It's a good question you're asking. Quite a few out there. So probably the governing kind of structure is from the ITU. So the ITU set out certain governance structures from an architecture point of view, which is really worth exploring. And then a few tech standards have emerged, such as the Etsy standard, which we wrote this book about. But there's also an IEEE set of standards on blockchain, including architectures. There's an ITF standard, so there are quite a few of those. And then we do have a few alliances as well, which play an important role, such as the Linux Foundation with Hyperledger, and other alliances which are also leveraging on architecture work.
Mm-hmm. And so, apart from technical standards, the book also touches on governance and regulatory aspects of blockchain ecosystems. Could you elaborate on how these factors play a crucial role in ensuring the successful integration of blockchain and 6G?
Yeah, that's really a great question. So the The governance is really important in blockchain because it's a disaggregated infrastructure where you could in theory operate in a completely anonymous way. So one thing which has been introduced early on, and that came from the fintech, from the financial environment, is the know your customer, so KYC, and the anti-money laundering regulatory requirements, AML. So that is really required to re-identify each endpoint in the blockchain fabric. And the same will hold, of course, for the telco ecosystem, right? If you think about it, if you really want to have trust in the supply chain, you need to know who's actually supplying you that equipment. So we'll have exactly the same type of, a very similar type of regulatory requirements there. But it doesn't stop there. So there's a whole set of other requirements which have been or are being introduced, such as by the ITU, as well as other regulatory bodies around the world, to make sure that this fully distributed technology really works well with current, legislations, as well as with really requirements to protect, in the end, the human society.
Mm-hmm. And so you discussed the role of blockchains in 6G data sharing and the metaverse. How do you envision these technologies transforming the telecommunication landscape and user experiences?
Suppose it's something which is re-emerging quite strongly. It has, it's been a bumpy journey, but I sit now in Silicon Valley here, so I can see there's a lot of excitement around this. The idea of us to do a cyber-physical overlay on the real world, whether that is you being in a VR headset, or you use augmented reality glasses and walk through the streets and get a lot of overlays there. So the idea to essentially use a virtual reality technology within, connected to a 5G or 6G ecosystem, is starting to become really reality. And one thing we observe is that specifically in the metaverse environment, there's a strong call for, again, a distributed, a distributed running of the infrastructure. So we would have, as an example, an asset that, say, there's I want to buy a specific piece of clothes, I want a pair, was provided by one provider. I would have glasses, digital glasses by another provider, and all that would sit on a platform which is yet done by a third provider. So the idea that you would really have an artist-driven, content-centric internet emerging, this is something what we see in the metaverse. And there you really need the blockchain technology, simply because you need to essentially keep track of ownership. You have now a fully distributed artistic network. If you think about this, how do you pay those artists, these creators? So driving this creator economy and enabling that with 5G, 6G connectivity is really what we think is going to be the next big thing.
Mm-hmm. And expanding a bit on that, so your work spans across a wide range of technologies, from blockchain and 6G, metaverse, and quantum computing. So how do you see all of these technologies converging and shaping the bigger picture, the future of communication and connectivity in general?
Yeah, so from a it's an interesting question. So the way how I personally see that is that you have, let's say, three big bubbles which are currently emerging in the tech world. One bubble is really around, let's say, AI, and we talk about ChatGPT, large language models. So the ability to have an accelerated, almost human-like, machine thinking, I think, is very important. So we see a lot of applications emerging there. Then we have the bubble of emerging an acceleration fabric, right? So you would have maybe quantum computers there, neuromorphic compute. You would also enjoy essentially the ability to weave in blockchain technologies, because they really allow you to keep track on what is happening in your digital fabric. So a lot of technology in this accelerator package. And then the third one is all around robotics. you would essentially have a robotic execution, whether these are humanoids doing certain work, so these are small actuators in our infrastructure doing certain things. So there's a lot of stuff there, which essentially is which is there. So once you put these three bubbles together, you will see that we will have an emerging behavior similar to how the internet has shaped society. So bringing AI, accelerators such as quantum, blockchain, etc., plus robotics into the same kind of Venn diagram will become a really defining factor for humanity. So that's how I see that roadmap evolve.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's very interesting. And maybe as a last question, what do you hope readers will take away from this book? How do you see it contributing to the ongoing discussions and developments in the field?
So one thing I would like readers to take away is that there is truly a convergence on the horizon between telecom technology and distributed blockchain technology. One is very telecom, one is very, let's say, computer science, internet centric. And we see that already, particularly in bodies like 3GPP emerging, where we have, forks now, really companies proposing essentially new ways of merging telco and blockchain. So I really would like readers to take away that this journey is happening. And also take away that it is important to keep track of a standardized way of doing that. So not just randomly introduce things, but this has to follow methodologies. You start with the architecture, then with the protocols, with the data sharing mechanisms, etc. And also that regulation is really important. So that's why we made sure, as co-authors, we made sure that the regulatory aspects were really central also to this book, apart from all the technical, things we talked about in the book.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor. And that was it. I will link the book in the description. And yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, Anna. Thank
Yeah.
you. Bye-bye.